Hi everyone, welcome tonight. Tonight I'm going to talk about a different topic. So most of the topics that I've covered have been around communication and relationships, which is sort of my area of expertise and interest. So we have a tendency, even when we coach or when we're speaking, that we tend to gravitate to the topics that is of interest to us or where we have our biggest knowledge base. A friend recently put a post up which was talking about overthinkers, and it got me thinking that there's so much to the human condition and to, the things that trouble us and sort of prevent us from navigating towards our goals, and overthinking is definitely one of those. Now, I wouldn't class myself as an overthinker these days. I certainly was in the past. I think when you're younger, particularly like when you're coming out of high school and you have to transition into the world of work and you have to make choices about your career, and certainly when I went through school, it wasn't really thought that you could have an option to change. It was like you make a decision at age 17 and that's it. That's your career for the rest of your life. Whereas these days, it's understood that it's quite easy to transition between careers. But those sort of times in your life where you're having to choose whether to go to uni or not, what job to have, it could be whether to get into a relationship, it could be whether to get out of a relationship. Changing jobs is just one facet. Moving house is another one. Big reason why we overthink is that we think we're going to get a better understanding or a better insight into the end result. But of course we're not. We like to think that we can play out every scenario in our head to work out which is going to be the best option. But knowing this, you might know in head knowledge what you think is going to happen, but of course in reality it very rarely happens. So you need to remember that you can't really gain any more insight by thinking about it. There has to be action and there has to be experience. And that's the only way we're going to know, is if we actually experience something. The other thing to keep in mind is that knowing the decision that you make is never final. So when you make a decision to do something, each part of that process, another event will happen and you'll make another decision and another decision. When we make decisions, we're making the best decision we can at the time with the information we have, with the skills we have, and with the strategies that we come to the table with. As we progress through life and we have experiences and we learn that didn't work so well, let's try another tact, we start to get a little bit quicker, hopefully, at making these decisions, and we have more experience under our belt, so hopefully the outcome is going to be more successful each time. Know that your decision is never final, so that there's always opportunity to move and wind around and change ever so slightly. It's just good to understand that it's okay to be wrong. And like I said, we make the best decision we can with the tools that we have at the time. Being wrong, or in our mind as being a wrong decision, use it as a learning tool, use it as something that you can leverage off for the next time, and be comfortable with not getting it right every time, because we're not going to get it right every time. That's just reality as being humans. Learn to understand that overthinking is harmful. So when you understand that the stress that it creates when you overthink. So there's been a lot of studies looked at stress response on the human. So cortisol is your stress hormone. It's responsible for all the butterflies in the tummy and, the anxious feeling and, needing to run to the bathroom and all those horrible sensations. But because when we live in a very quick society, we have information overload. We've got a lot of demands on us at every given moment. So those cortisol levels, they're just dripping away the whole time. So we never really get a chance to relax. And then you go and sit down and then your mind starts ticking. It's like, if you realize the damage that is being done to your body long term through keeping that cortisol level up, maybe that's a motivator for you to see the health benefit in trying to get a handle on this overthinking. Another thing you would have heard, I'm sure, is to keep active. So if you're tired, Your mind's not going to be thinking. You've all done it, I'm sure, where you've had a busy day, whether you've decided to start exercising and you're absolutely cactus by the end of the day, and you just fall into bed and fall asleep. So there's no opportunity to overthink. I think overthinking quite often can happen at night because the demands of the day, be it work, running kids around, whatever you've got on your normal day, that starts to settle of an evening as we're all winding down to go to bed. But of course, that's sometimes, if you're an overthinker, that's when it can all start playing. So knowing that you've got a specific time of day, and it may not be night, it may be lunchtime at work, it may be first after school, that after school time when you first get home. When you know the time of day that you're going to overthink, start to look at an activity that you can put in place at that particular time. Preferably something that's going to use all your faculties, like going for a walk, playing with the dog outside, some sort of physical activity, so that when I say using all your faculties, so you're moving, you're listening, you're looking, so you're stimulating all the senses, because that will help to tire the body out, but it'll also help quieten the mind as well. Now, something I put in a post, I think it was today. It was today or yesterday, I can't remember, around serving others. So it's a great way, one, to I guess have that focus in life to help other people, but it puts your problems into perspective so quickly. In nursing, I've learned this very quickly. Working in areas like intensive care and oncology with kids, you didn't have to look very far to find somebody who was far worse off than you. I mean, every day I would go to work and there'd be something that a family would be facing that it's like, well, my problem's just pale in comparison. Now, that's not to diminish your problems, because everybody's problems are very personal to them and they're very real. I mean, you live in your body 24/7, so of course you're going to be affected by things that are the unknown, and you're worried about making a choice one way or the other. But by serving other people, you start to see people with less opportunities than you. They may not have the same resources as you, and it just starts to put it into perspective for you. And maybe that overthinking might ease a little bit, because it's very easy to become quite self-involved if you're an overthinker. And this isn't to put anybody down. I've been there. I've had anxiety issues before in the past, and it's very consuming. It's just all consuming, and you live in your own little world and your own little bubble. But the problem is when you don't reach out and start to help other people and see other people in need, because when you're feeling anxious and you're overthinking, all you can think about is you. You want to be out of this pain. So you just focus on you, and you think by focusing on you, you're going to somehow improve it. The quickest way is to focus on someone else. And sometimes it can be really, really hard to do that. But as I said, seek out to serve other people first, and then you will find that the perspective comes, and problems won't go away, but they will be put into perspective. Another thing you can do is plan conscious distractions. So like I alluded to earlier, was if you know at night time, or if you know of an afternoon, they're the peak times for you to overthink. For me, when I was struggling with this overthinking and anxiety, it was when I was driving, because I guess I was in the car by myself. Then there'd be various stimuli, whether it was on the radio or something I would see driving past, and that would just start my thoughts. And of course, your thoughts, they're just like a firecracker going off in your head. They just go in many different directions all at once, and you could look at a yellow sign, and before you know it, you'd be thinking about a stressful event. It's just the way your brain works. It just goes nuts. So being able to know when you're most likely to do those things, like overthink, is when you want to put distractions in place. Be it, say for me in the car, have a specific song that you have on, so that you know you'll be distracted, enjoying the song, singing to it, less likely to be able to fall into that trap of just going into that downward spiral of overthinking. And of course, seeking help is always a good option. That doesn't have to be psychologists or psychiatrists. Coaches galore. I coach. There's a lot of people out there that do coaching now with various techniques like NLP. there's a technique in NLP called reframing. This, I think, is a brilliant way because it's so quick. And an example might be if somebody bumped in line to get onto a bus or a ferry or some public transport that you've been in line waiting for, and these people came and rushed and pushed past you. You still got a seat, but it's like, how rude. I was there first, why push in? Now, it's easy to get very frustrated and angry, and then you could be stewing on it the whole ride, stewing on it for the whole day. If you ever face a situation like that, stop and ask your question, what else could it mean? Now, we hold on to our belief system very strongly, so when something happens to us, somebody's hurt us, somebody's not called you back, somebody's done something that's given you a negative emotion, stop and ask yourself, what else could it mean? So there could be lots of reasons why these people push past. It might be that they were saving the seat for somebody else. It might be that, they had a sore leg or something and they wanted to make sure they got on the seat so that they didn't have to stand the whole trip. While some people may say, well, that doesn't excuse it, it's still rude. But their intention was not to be rude if they had a sore leg or if they were trying to get it for the person behind them who might be an old lady back there and they knew she wouldn't get a seat, so they wanted to save a seat for her. Intention was 100% positive. They were just so distracted with that intention to get the seat for the old lady that they probably may not have even noticed that they bumped you. So there's just a couple of scenarios that it might be, but our first knee-jerk reaction was like, it's all about me. Like, why did you bump into me? How dare you push past me? Then you can go down that path of overthinking, overanalyzing, and this can be attributed to any interaction. It doesn't have to be strangers bumping you. It can be family members that have said or done something, or a partner, or children, because they can do things too. Always think, what else could it mean? What was the other thing I was going to say? Ask questions. I put that post up as well yesterday about asking the question. So if there's something that you're hanging on to and you're deliberating on and you can get an answer from somebody, ask the question. There's nothing worse than sitting there in an attempt to try and come up and be a fortune teller to work out what the answer's going to be, because it's taking away the joy in the current moment. It's creating problems that aren't even there. So it's important, if you've got a question that you can ask somebody and get the answer to, don't hang on to it, don't stew on it, just ask the question. Because even if the response isn't the one that you were hoping for, isn't it better to know that than to be living in this misery of overthinking and overanalyzing, because that isn't going to change the outcome. If, say, you wanted to ask somebody out and you're anxious about it, it's understandable, but you're stewing on it, weeks go by and you still don't ask, the decision will probably end up getting made for you. This person will probably find somebody else. But ask the question. The worst people can say is no, or you get the response that you don't want, but you're no worse off. It's better than sitting there and just hoping and praying and willing the response that you want, because you're not going to be able to influence it. It will be what it will be, and it's much better to have a clear understanding and a clear communication with whoever it is that's creating this anxiety and concern in you. So there's just a few pointers on overthinking. I'm going to touch on this a little bit more in the next couple of videos, because there's quite an array of things when it comes to overthinking and anxiety. I think another one is generalizations. It's something that, for those that know me, know that it's probably a little bit of a pet peeve when people say always and never, because there's very few things in life that are always and never. So I'll go into that a little bit more around generalization, sort of why we do it, and how to change our language so that we're not falling into the trap of implanting that in our thinking, because that can lead to a lot of anxiety as well, and a lot of overthinking if we think this always happens to me or this never happens to me. So look, thanks for jumping on, and if you like it, share it out, and I look forward to seeing you all on Friday evening. Thanks.